this is something that would help the farmer grind their corn. So there were two very large stones. I'll get up a little bit closer. This pole in the stone would turn the two pieces. It would turn the top piece around the bottom piece. They would put the corn in the hole, and as they turned this, the flour would come inside this box, and it would come out the chute into that crock. And then they would either store it in the crock, or they would take the flour and put it into sacks. And they would either keep this flour then in their home to use for baking, or they would, if they got enough, if he was a prosperous farmer, he would also bring it into town and try to sell it so that they could get money. Because again, they would use money for things that they could not grow.
Oh wait, tell me this.
This one? Okay. This, let's see if we can get a good picture of it. This goes up really, really high. Okay, and this part right here, they used to crank this way up in the air and then let the weight go down real hard, and it would make holes into the ground. After the holes were made, or as deep as the farmer wanted them to be, they would then attach logs or poles onto the bottom of that and raise it again and let it bang into the ground, and it would get the posts real deep into the ground, and then they were sturdy, and they would use that for making fences and also poles to anchor their homes or the like barns. This was the first mass-produced tractor. Before that, they were all made individually, and when they went to mass production, it made things cheaper because it was an assembly line type thing, and they could make the tractors cheaper for everyone, and then it was more affordable, and it was easier for the farmers. And let's see, this is 2,500 pounds, and it only costs $395 in our money. But back then, $395 would have been a lot of money. So here's a wheel, and those slats in the wheel on the top were to give the tractor traction so that it wouldn't get stuck in the mud. And then that rim on the top would be to keep the mud from hitting the farmer in the face when he was driving. So that's the tractor.
Tell me what this is.
This is a McCormick Reaper. It's an exact replica of the first Reaper that was made in 1831. Okay, and I think what this Reaper did, I think it took the hay and helped somehow make it into bales, but quite honestly, Jack, I'm not exactly sure what that Reaper did. But it had something to do with the hay. And here's a real old sled that the farmer would bring out with him into the field so that he wouldn't have to make so many trips back to the barn. He would put things on the sled and then bring it all back at once, so it was far more efficient for him. And these are some of the things that they would make with the hay. Remember when I told you they took the part off that you eat? And this is what was left over. They can weave hats, and these things would cover up some of their plants.
Wait,
oh, the honeybee thing is gone. I wonder what happened to that. This is a grape crusher. So they used to put grapes in here, and they would turn this crank, and then it would separate the grape from the juice, and they would either just drink the juice, or they would turn the juice into wine. They would let it ferment. I'm not quite sure what they did with the pulp from the grape. I'm sure they ate it, but it probably wouldn't be all that good. This thing, this is a smoker, and what they would do with this, they would get the smoke inside, and then they would aim it at a beehive in a tree to get rid of the bees, so that the farmer could harvest the honey, because the bees would stay away from the hive for maybe half an hour if the smoke came, and that would be harmless to the bees. It would not hurt them. Here's a beehive that was in a tree trunk. And here's a sample of the hay, where the top part is the part that could be eaten, and they would separate it from the bottom part. And again, the bottom part is what was used to make things or to feed animals, and the top part was what was important to the families for their survival for food. And hay starts out where it's green, but this is dried, and they have to pick it because they have to save all of this for the winter because they don't have any hay to feed their animals in the winter.
This cider
And this would
milk.
give them flour. This is a cider mill. So they would put apples in the top, they would turn this crank, and then they would have apple cider. They would have the juice to drink.
Show the bottom.
That would come into this bucket. Now
Show the
this
next
bucket
one.
is really old. As you can see, it's fallen apart. It would have been real tight so that the apple cider wouldn't leak through. Okay, which one?
This.
This thing, those circles down here, that the farmer would drive that through the field. See, this thing would have been hooked up to a horse or an oxen, and he would sit on this, and this would go down to the field, and that would scoop up all the dead hay. And then he would put all that dead hay onto a wagon to bring it up and put them into hay bales. So that's what that is.
So wait, what is that?
See, that's another one of these reapers that I'm going to have to look up on the internet, Jack, and find out what a reaper is. But it's a bigger reaper than the other ones, so it probably was able to be far more efficient for the farmer, but it's something with hay, and I just can't tell you what it is because I don't know. So I'll look that one up for you.
So it looks like it was the next.
Okay.
The next.
Now see this thing right here, when the farmer, before they had those planters, first they would use their fingers, to make the holes, and then they started using one that was wooden like that would help them make holes in the soil to plant their seeds. Well, then they advanced and they were able to use one that's a horn from an animal. And they could also use metal. So those would be kind of primitive for us, but it was an advancement from them doing it with their fingers. This thing, start out here, going across here, that would go across a farmer's shoulders. Now, let's see if we can back up and get a better view of it. That would go across the farmer's shoulders, and he would put seed on either end, and then he would walk down a field, and he would have a little lever, and it would drop seeds at even intervals on each side. Okay, so that was considered an advancement too, and these are just pitchforks and hoes and things that they would use on their farm. Now these are samples of saws, because with the saws they had to cut down their own trees, and they had to then cut the logs into boards so that they could make their own homes. And the reason there's two handles on those saws, it was easier for two people to work together. While one man was pushing, another would be pulling as they went back and forth, so it made things far easier for them. This is a sample of a cotton plant, and the cotton had to be hand-picked, and then they would clean all the burrs off of it, and then they would have their clean cotton, and they would put it into this big wagon, and from the wagon they would put them into sacks, and then from the sacks they would be put into what is called a bale, and the bale was supposed to weigh a certain amount so that they had checks and balances when they went to sell it, because they could say a bale of cotton is selling for $1.
Wait, listen that.
Oh, this is a steam engine, and it was actually made in Illinois. Here's the Jack. Why don't you stand in front of the tire so we can show them how tall the tire is? Right here, honey. Why don't you stand right in the middle of the tire there? This shows you how big that tire was on the steam engine. It was gigantic. But it was the first steam engine that was used, and this is just like that tractor where they have those metal things on the tire to provide traction when they're in the mud. And there's the steering wheel. We've never quite been able to find the seat on this thing, so we think that maybe they stood.